All right, I am on the test server, and I'm going to be looking at Reaver 10. I know that this came out in the live server. I have it on my main account, but just a 10 energy one, so I kind of want to try it on something that's like not maxed out. I am following Reaver with very great interest. I'm not going to lie, I think this is actually going to be a very good weapon on certain mechs. Some people don't believe me. I think it is going to be. But yeah, we're just going to try it on a couple things here. Just the double 10s against bots, keep in mind. Most things do pretty well against bots, so don't necessarily take good performance to necessarily mean that it's going to perform well against players, but it might. It might. This video is also going to be the monthly giveaway video. In order to enter, all you have to do is put in the keyword ID : and then follow that with your in-game ID. Your in-game ID is this number right here on the test server. It's really small, but you know, whatever this number is for you, you can press this button to copy it, and that is your player ID. And I did start this a day later than I intended to, but this is going to run until the 21st. In terms of the prizes, I'm actually going to leave that up to you guys. We have two options. So either 10 people can win 1,000 A-coins, or 20 people can win 500. And so I'm going to have two comments down below with each of those options. So just upvote whichever one you would prefer, and obviously make sure to leave your own comment with your ID. Don't leave a reply to my comment because it's not going to count. So the damage output of these is like, it's not as good as Revoker, obviously, nothing is, but it has a bit better range, and the damage output is, I think, similar enough to where it might still be pretty good. The thing that really has me intrigued is specifically the 16. Obviously don't have access to the 16 yet, but that's the thing that I'm mostly kind of excited for, I guess you should say. Because, as far as I can tell, the 16s should be able to, like, one mag, even maxed perimeter multi-layer shields. Whether or not it could kill a max-modded enemy faster than Revoker does, I don't know. But essentially, it is possible that these do see some competitive gameplay, and that is the thing that I'm mostly interested in. Let's see, that guy does good against bots. It's melting these bots, but again, you know, they're just bots and they don't have mods either, so also helps. But it's doing pretty good, and it definitely has better effective range than Revoker does. That's another note to make, right? Like, there's certain mechs, okay, I'm probably cooked here. There are certain mechs like Parasite, which I was just using, and now even to some degree Eclipse, which aren't really fast enough to close the distance for Revoker that easily. So something like Reaver could actually be better on them, especially in like CPC where you're a bit less close together, or however you'd say that. Whatever words I'm looking for. So, you know, like Revoker Eclipse, and I think Eclipse is a good example too, right? Revoker Eclipse is arguably the best build. Another popular build for Eclipse is like minigun or potentially overdriver, but most of the time minigun. Because the extra range on Eclipse, especially in control point clash mode, gives it a lot of value, because you can stay outside of the range of the Revokers, and the maps are big enough to where you can actually keep your distance. Something like a Reaver has a little bit of both. Really good damage output, not as good as Revoker, but also half decent range, not as good effective range, and not as good as minigun. So it's sort of a combination of the two, and I think it could end up being a solid build. Potentially not top meta, but a solid choice all the same, right? And so that's the thing that I'm mostly interested in, mostly curious about, is whether or not this becomes a decent meta pick, because it very well could be. I tried the 8s, I think, on the test server a while back, and I seem to recall they did surprisingly well on Seeker, which is another one that I'll try. I'm not really sure. Seeker doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, but I mean, if it works, then it works, right? God, I'm just gonna kill you real quick. The reload is freaking 1 second, dude. And the unload time, I recall I wasn't super confident about the unload time on my first video. The unload time is 1.4 seconds, I timed it. So 1.4 second unload time, 1 second reload time. Very, very fast cycle. So potentially really strong. It's like, oh, okay. Just, come on. I have it on Seeker now. This is not like the best map for it, but we'll try it anyway. Okay, I'll go around. Thank you very much. I'm not sure really the benefit of this over like Revoker, except for potentially effective range, but I'm not really sure Seeker needs effective range. I might be cooked here a little bit. But I know it did really well last time. at least with the 8s. So maybe there's something worth checking out there, right? Okay, nice. I got that. Very good. 70% double damage chance, by the way. That's pretty crazy. That's a lot of enemies, and a lot of Revokers, too. Every single one of them will absolutely beat the crap out of me, dude. Yeah, freaking called it. So yeah, because the way this thing works, I think it's mostly going to be ideal for, like, certain tank mechs, or really just anything that, like, wants to be a brawler, but isn't fast enough to sustain Revokers. Minigun or Overdriver are, like, good weapon options for mechs like that, usually, but, you know, if you can get somewhat close, this is a nice, like, middle ground between Minigun and Revoker, essentially. Where it's like, you have to get a bit closer, but it does have more damage output, or at least more potential, I think. Oh, I'm freaking dead, dude. What? So the main problem with Reaver, and the main reason that I think it may not end up being a decent meta choice, is because it actually doesn't have more DPS than Minigun. It has more sustained DPS in the sense that over a 20-second time period where Minigun's dumping out its mag size. Same thing with Overdriver. Once the mag runs out, then you end up with higher sustained DPS. So over a period of longer than 20 seconds is the only time where this is actually superior to those weapons. But Minigun has better effective range and essentially better DPS if you're careful with how you manage your exposure time. So really then, Reaver only becomes relevant... I might be cooked here. So really then, Reaver only becomes relevant on mechs that are exposed for longer than 20 seconds. So like they're super aggro, like maybe something like a Bastion or a Vortex or a Nomad in this case, right? But also mechs that can survive that amount of time, right? Like a Nomad can be aggro and should be aggro, but it's not realistically going to last longer than 20 seconds. Now, you wouldn't use a minigun on it, but this goes for, like, almost anything, right? It goes for, you know, Bastion, Vortex, any mech that you'd be super aggro with. Nothing lasts 20 seconds. The only thing that might is, like, an Eclipse, and so Eclipse is the main one that I'm thinking could be good. But, yeah, so it's, like, it's a bit of a niched scenario, and maybe they make a mech that's actually decent in close quarters for relative close quarter for longer than that amount of time, but I don't really know. The main thing I am interested in is, like I said earlier, mostly the 16s, because I know that they should theoretically have the stats necessary to 1-mag a perimeter multilayer, a max perimeter multilayer shield faster than Revoker can. And that is the main thing that has me thinking, this could actually be pretty good. So the 16s on maybe a Deathwalker or a Dreadnought or something like that. Potentially a Blockhorn, but I don't know about the... I'm a little hesitant to say that Blockhorn's really slow, and it's not gonna have good... it's not really good at close quarters. But yeah, so it's hard to tell exactly how I like these lower energy versions. I would say that I don't necessarily love them. They can be decent, a decent, like, filler weapon. Like, if you're using up all your Revokers on something else. Be a decent filler weapon, but again, like, minigun kind of has better DPS while it's firing, so the only time Reaver becomes relevant is when it comes specifically to destroying perimeter multilayered shields. It's a really nice sounding weapon, though. I really like the way that it sounds. I almost stepped outside of that. I think I'm probably gonna die pretty soon, to be honest. Is there an enemy down here? There are 2. Hello, chonk. And I'd like to try to use this on, like, a damage boosting mech as well, but there really aren't any good close quarters ones except for Blockhorn, so I'm not really sure that would work. And if you're using the 16s, then it should 1-meg a perimeter multilayer anyway. Should not need a damage boost on the 16s in order to do that. So at that point, it's just kind of unnecessarily excessive. But it could be good on. Overall, just a decent weapon. Even if it's not going to be the best, it's definitely going to be one of the better ones that they've released in a while. They've made some really bad weapons lately, but this one I think could be okay. Might be dead here. Oh, wait, what? Yeah, okay. Okay, so after redoing the math, this is the amount of damage you would have to deal per shot in order to one-shot the layers of a maxed perimeter multilayer. So this is not equal to the 10s, obviously, but this is also not equal to what the 16s theoretically would be capable of. So 2982. We'll just keep that in mind. So right now we got 1789 on the 10 times 1.6. This is what the 16 should be capable of. 2982. This is not 2982. So this means that a single Reaver 16 could not take down a multi-layered shield, but double 16s could. But then double 12s could, double 10s could. These double 10s could 1 meg a shield. And that's still pretty good, right? It's 1.4 seconds, like I said. So even just the Reaver 10s, with 2 of them, should be able to 1 meg a maxed perimeter multi-layered shield. And so that's decent information. But then at the same time, how much damage output does that leave you, right? Because it's essentially saying, okay, you need at least 2 shots, 2 projectiles per layer, and there's 9 layers. So you'd need to spend at least 18 projectiles out of your total 30. And that's most of your damage gone into the shield layer. You're not going to have a whole lot of damage left from your magazine, so even double 16s, you'd have to reload and then mag dump all over again to try to kill the enemy mech. So at that point, what you're left with is the HP, the raw HP, and this is the amount of damage that you'd need to deal with a single Reaver, the amount of damage per magazine, be it a 10, a 12, a 16, whatever, to be able to 1 mag the mech's remaining HP after you're done with the perimeter multi-layer. This is essentially how much you'd need, which is, you can tell, is a far cry off from the max damage of Reaver 10, and would even be a far cry off from the max damage of Reaver 16. This is including like the double damage chance, right? We're assuming that the entirety of the double damage chance is getting absorbed by a maxed galvanic hull, which it should. And so this means that even if you're using 16s, it should take about 2 magazines, I think. Almost exactly 2, yeah, 1.95. So it should take almost 2 full magazines just for the HP alone, if you're including a galvanic hull there. Which means that you got the 1.4 second unload time 3 times, and then you have 2 reload times between them. That's 6.2 second kill speed. Even for the 16s, that would be a 6.2 second kill speed on a maxed, modded, whatever thing. And that's rather significantly higher than Revoker. Revoker is, I believe, 3.2 or 3.4 second kill speed at 5 meters. It's like maybe 4 seconds top, Revoker is. So this right here is rather unacceptable in a meta environment. So I don't necessarily think it's going to be great. And that is unfortunate because, yeah, like I said at the start, as far as I'm aware, I'm pretty sure it's the fastest perimeter multilayer kill speed that you can get. 1.4 seconds to take down a maxed perimeter multilayer. I don't think there's a weapon that can do it faster than that. However, it loses a lot of value because immediately after taking down that perimeter multilayer, it has no damage output for a full second. And in you might think 1 second's not that much, it's a long time. Against Revokers, 1 second is a long freaking time. And so, yeah, it's just, it doesn't end up being viable. So more than likely not a Revoker substitute. I still think it could potentially do pretty darn well on certain mechs, especially if you're already using your Revokers on all your scouts and whatever. Throwing Reaver on something else as like a 4th brawler mech or whatever could be decent, especially if you don't want to deal with the turn speed penalty from minigun or the damage delay build-up thing from Overdriver. Those 2 things can be a pain in the ass. So yeah, Reaver could be okay, and you might see it sometimes, but it's definitely not going to be a straight-up replacement to Revoker, that is for sure. Now, in a scenario where Galvanic Hull doesn't exist, then maybe this would actually be a lot better, but as it stands, I think Galvanic Hull is going to absorb a bit too much of this thing's extra damage. I think that's mostly what the problem is. And also the fact that the Reaver 16 just barely does not have enough damage per projectile to take down a single layer. If it could, then it would shoot minimal projectiles and be able to shred through a multi-layered shield and also take down a significant chunk of the mech's HP. As it stands, it's probably just barely going to be outside of that. And maybe something like a Blockhorn damage boost could actually solve that problem for you, though that would also get absorbed by Galvanic Hull. It would also change the rate at which you destroy Galvanic Hull, because max Galvanic Hull is 80%. It protects you for 80% of your HP from specialized damage. Reaver has a 70% double damage chance, so realistically, the mech should be dead dead by the time the Galvanical is broken. Like, the Galvanical should still be like 10% alive by the time the mech dies. If you include Blockhorn, that would potentially change up a lot of things, and there's a lot of math involved in that, which I can't be bothered to do right now, but theoretically it could be pretty solid. And you know, Blockhorn is somewhat of an anti-Revoker scout mech. I'm not gonna lie, if you play it right, you might see some Reaver Blockhorns every now and again. Kinda doubt it, because Blockhorn is super slow, and that's really bad for a weapon that has no range, but you might. At any rate, yeah, just a reminder about the giveaway. Make sure you leave a comment with the keyword and your ID, and also make sure you vote on which prize you think would be the best, and by the end, I'll just pick whichever one has the most votes. Anyway, yeah, that will be it for me. Appreciate y'all. Take care.